I have an opinion on Tears of the Kingdom. Okay, now let's check the comment section here. Oh boy. Tears of the Kingdom is a very controversial game that people either love or they love to hate. And while I already made a video talking about why I think that is, in this video, I'll be discussing my own thoughts on the game, aka throwing myself into the war. Now, some of you may be asking, why should I care about your opinion on Tears of the Kingdom? Good question. You shouldn't. But I am a longtime Zelda fan who's beaten almost every game in the series, put over 150 hours on Tears of the Kingdom, and post mini game reviews on Twitter for fun, so that means my opinion totally matters more than yours. Okay, I should probably stop making jokes now or else nobody will take me seriously. With that being said, let's get talking about Tears of the Kingdom. So I think how we're gonna do this is, let's start with the good things first and we'll end with the bad. That sound good to you? Cool. What is good about Tears of the Kingdom? Lots of things. But let's start off with a hot, spicy take. I think the story in Tears of the Kingdom is good. Yeah, I said it. Now, the Zelda series has never really been known to have, like, the greatest stories of all time. You know, there's other games that I have played that have much better stories than the Zelda series has. But they've never really been that bad. Like, they're passable, they're good for the most part. You know, I'd say they're probably above average. And Tears of the Kingdom is no different. In fact, I like Tears of the Kingdom story more than Breath of the Wild story. But in the end, Tears of the Kingdom story starts strong and ends strong with some iffiness, I might say. I know we're starting off with the good, I'll save the bad for later. This game actually has some really strong, powerful, emotional moments in it, and even some plot twists that I think are really cool. Like, I remember first playing this game for the first time, and that intro sequence had me way more invested in the story of Tears of the Kingdom than Breath of the Wild ever had on me. And the ending is also just way cooler than Breath of the Wild's ending too. But honestly, Zelda's story and her journey in reviving the Master Sword, I think was really cool. Especially the crazy plot twist of Zelda being the dragon the entire time, I thought was awesome. Now, from what I've seen online, what I can tell most people complain about with Tears of the Kingdom story is basically the continuity within the lore of connecting the games to previous Zelda games and Breath of the Wild even. Luckily for me, I'm in a situation where I really don't care about the Zelda lore. I've never been one of those people who have gone on YouTube, watched Zelda lore videos, Zelda theory videos. I honestly do not care. I do not play Zelda games for that. I just find Zelda games to be fun, and I thought Tears of the Kingdom was fun. I can completely understand why people who really are into that Zelda lore and the timeline and all that stuff might think Tears of the Kingdom did a disservice to all that, but because I've never cared, it doesn't really bother me, so that's just a personal opinion for me. I still enjoy Tears of the Kingdom. Maybe that should be its own video for another day. Alright, let's get to a not hot take on something that Tears of the Kingdom does good, and that is the graphics. The visuals in Tears of the Kingdom are beautiful. I already thought Breath of the Wild was one of the best looking games on the Nintendo Switch, and then Tears of the Kingdom just came out, and it looks even better. Especially during like the sunsets and sunrises, man. Just the lighting is so good. Another thing I love about Tears of the Kingdom is the freedom. If Breath of the Wild is like playing Minecraft on survival mode, Tears of the Kingdom is like loading up your survival world on Minecraft and turning on creative mode. It literally just feels like I'm playing Breath of the Wild on creative mode with just how much you can do in this game. Which for me, as a content creator, really means a lot because I have so much fun with just screwing around and doing dumb things in this game and seeing how silly of a situation I can get in because it makes for great YouTube content. This game is fantastic if you're a YouTuber. We're keeping the Minecraft trend, but the reason why Minecraft is so popular on YouTube is because of just how much freedom Minecraft gives people, where each person's playthrough is going to be completely different than any other person's playthrough, and that's kind of the same with Tears of the Kingdom. There's so many different ways to complete different puzzles, there's so many different ways to traverse the land, there's so many different ways to do anything in this game, and it's just a lot of fun to see what people can come up with, and seeing what people have made with like the Ultrahand, all the build stuff is super fun, super cool. Another thing I like about Tears of the Kingdom, building on that freedom, is the abilities you have in this game. I honestly think they're all better than the Breath of the Wild ones. I don't know. I know some people might miss bombs because they like the wind bomb. Luckily for me, I never learned how to wind bomb. Ultrahand, so cool. Building all these things like we just talked about. Ascend, super handy for so many situations. Recall, also fantastic. And then last but not least, we have Fuse, which we'll talk more about Fuse later. And last but not least, this game is it's fun. That's what video games are supposed to be, and I think that's really the most important thing, is this game is fun, and I really think that does come back to, as a content creator, I find out of all the games that I make videos on, you guys see that I mostly make Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild content, because I don't know, just making content on this game is super fun. I think it really does have to do with just that freedom to get yourself into these silly situations. I genuinely have fun playing this game. But now, all good things must come to an end. Let's talk about the bad. Now, first off, you might notice that the bad section of this video is quite a bit longer than the good section, and that's just because it's easier to complain about things than to come up with things I like. I feel like everybody can agree with that. It's so easy to complain about things. It's so easy to find things that I dislike. I can talk like, oh, it's fun. How do I explain that it's fun? I don't know, I had fun. But with bad, I feel like I could just talk endlessly about things that make me angry. Speaking of, we'll talk about the story. I know I just said the story was good, but it's not all good. All I can say is Demon King? Secret Stone? Going to all of the dungeons and meeting up with the sages gets a little repetitive. A lot of the times it ends up just being the same thing over and over again, which doesn't really help because it's also the same thing over again from Breath of the Wild. Places you go to are the same as they were in Breath of the Wild. You go to the Rito village, you go to the Goron village, you go to the Gerudo village, go to the Zoro's domain. Just like in Breath of the Wild, it gets repetitive. It feels like I'm playing Breath of the Wild again, but also feels like I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. I really think it could have been much improved if they did entirely new areas instead of repeating the same areas that we were at for the dungeons in Breath of the Wild. And I think the worst part of it all is you get to collect the Dragon Tears out of order. Luckily for me, again, I am being saved here as a content creator, which shouldn't happen. I have something called people who watch me that like to give me tips, and they gave me a tip to collect the Dragon Tears in order. They told me how to find out what the order was, and I was like, oh, wow, I would have never figured out that this is the order I should view them in without my viewers' help. So thank you guys. But for all of you who didn't have viewers and people telling you what to do, you may have accidentally stumbled upon a memory out of order and completely spoiling a big plot point. Yikes. Yeah, they definitely should have made it impossible to even collect the memories out of order, like only the one that is next should be like viewable, and then the next one will appear after you get that one. I really feel like the Tears of the Kingdom developers were really obsessed with freedom, and I know we talked about freedom being a good thing, but as we'll talk here throughout the bad, freedom's also a bad thing. In this case, too much freedom. I feel like IGN 7.8, too much water, too much freedom. Next up, the dungeons. While the dungeons are a step up, they're also not great. I fell in love with the Zelda series thanks to games like Skyward Sword, Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker. I really love the dungeons in those games, the dungeons being my favorite part of Zelda games, actually. That's like one of the most important things to me in a Zelda game are the dungeons, and they're so well done in the old Zelda games that it's just so sad that just not the same anymore. I do really like that the dungeons actually have their own personality and own distinctiveness between each other. They actually have their own unique textures this time, and they actually are like inside of a legit temple this time, except, well, not all of them. Water temple, you know, there's kind of some floating islands out there. Doesn't feel much like a temple to me. Now, what is the major reason why I don't like the dungeons? Remember I talked about too much freedom? We're back. I don't know what they were thinking. There is too much freedom in the dungeons. Like Breath of the Wild was so good, and everyone's like, oh, the freedom that game lets you. You can do anything you want. And the developers heard that. They're like, oh, that's good. Let's add that freedom everywhere. Let's add it. Let the player do whatever they want. But restrictions are actually good sometimes. Let's go back to Minecraft. Playing on a survival world with creative mode on isn't always that fun. You just cheese the whole system, go right to the end, kill the Ender Dragon, yada yada, you're done. That's not so fun. And that's how it feels like when I'm playing dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom. I feel like I'm on the creative mode, and I can just spawn in my hover bike and fly over the entire thing and get to the end and skip all sorts of puzzles. There is too much freedom. I should not have the ability to skip so much. It would be really great if they separated the overworld with having so much freedom. And then you get into these temples and you're all restricted. It'll be a super great contrast to have these two different types of Zelda games combined into one. You could have had, like, you know, the Breath of the Wild when you're out exploring, and then the classic Zelda dungeons where you're more restricted. That would have been so great, but unfortunately, it's not as satisfying to solve puzzles when I can just cheese everything. Well, let's talk about Fuse. Fuse I like because of the sheer creativity it gives you to fuse so many different things together. That is awesome, but it just feels so convoluted and annoying to use. Like a lot of people say, Fuse fixed the whole durability issue. You know, everybody hated the durability in Breath of the Wild, and Fuse was supposed to make that better. But honestly, I don't think it does at all. Your weapons still break really quickly, and they break even more quickly when they're not fused, so you're forced to fuse in order to even use a weapon. If you don't fuse, you basically are gonna lose. It's so hard to fuse in battle. Let's say you're in battle, right? And you break your weapon, you want to fuse a new thing to it because using an unfused weapon is pointless, so you gotta pause the game, drop your item on the ground, all while an enemy is attacking you, try and fuse it. It's annoying. I feel like you should just be able to go into the pause menu, click on the item you want, and boom, it's fused to the weapon you have equipped, kind of like when fusing arrows. See, fusing arrows, you can take out your bow, and then boom, you just pull up a menu, and you can select the item you want. That's super nice and simple, except it's not. Because every time you shoot an arrow, you have to pause the game, fuse, shoot, pause the game, fuse. If I want to spam bomb arrows and cheese the final boss, there's a lot of pausing, there's a lot of stopping. I feel like there's just had to have been a better way, especially because the menu that you pull up when you fuse arrows is a super big, long menu. There's so many items in this game, so if you want to find the perfect item that you want to fuse with, you might be scrolling there for a while, and I made jokes about this in my YouTube videos. I'll pull up the elevator music while I'm searching for an item because it just takes that long. You want to go? Huh? You want to go? Any day now. Just let me run through all my items. There we go. There it is. I feel like it just unnecessarily complicates things when I want to fight. I can't just fight. I have to make sure my weapons are fused. Every time I finish with a fight, I gotta drop a bunch of items on the ground, make sure my weapons are fused for the next battle. I don't know, not for me. Next bad thing we're gonna talk about is the world of Tears of the Kingdom. Now, the world of Tears of the Kingdom is the same world as Breath of the Wild. While I do think it's fun to go back and see how things have changed since Breath of the Wild, that's like honestly the biggest positive about the reusage of the same world from Breath of the Wild is just going back and seeing, wow, look at how things have changed now. That's cool, that's fun, but then you see everything and then you're like, well, this is the same world I've already spent hundreds of hours in Breath of the Wild, and it just doesn't seem as fun to explore. And now people in the comments might be saying, but Mr. Nice Guy, there's also the Sky Islands and the depths and the yada yada, and you're correct. Except, unfortunately, the Sky Islands and the depths are not that great. The Great Sky Island, that was awesome. But then you explore the Sky Islands that aren't the Great Sky Island. There's not much going on there, and a lot of them are repeated. Although it's beautiful, just wish there was more there. And then there's the depths. When you first get there, I will not deny, awesome. I love every time I go into the depths, actually. I love that horn that plays. Love that stuff. Discovering that there is a giant world the same size as the surface. How cool is that? Until you start to explore it for a couple hours and realize that it's just kind of like a repeat of the world above, and everything looks the same. There's only like one biome, except for underneath the volcano, underneath Death Mountain. There's like a new lava-y area in the depths, and that's the only area in the depths that has its own unique biome. Why didn't any other place get its own unique biome? Why is there not like an underground desert, underground snowy area? Why does it all look the same? Why is there not much to do down there? The surface is just so much more fleshed out. Like, if the depths in the sky were just as fleshed out as the surface, and there were all sorts of cool things, I don't know, like a town, a village of little chickens, like in Twilight Princess, who lived in the sky, that would be super cool. Maybe like a mole people from Skyward Sword living in the depths, and they had their own town down there. That would be really cool, but there's no towns in the depths or the sky. It just, there needs to be more. And I know one of the biggest complaints people have with Tears of the Kingdom that I have seen online is it's too similar to Breath of the Wild. $70 DLCs, the people say. And I don't want to say they're kind of right, but they are, I feel like they are kind of right in a way, because the game does feel too similar. The story and how it's laid out with the dungeons, too similar. The world, exactly the same, it's too similar. I really feel like this game would really have benefited from a brand new world with brand new characters, and that really probably would have shut up everybody about the whole $7 DLC thing, and made the game more unique and stand out. Speaking of being unique and stand out, let's talk about the music. I think the biggest disappointment in Tears of the Kingdom for me is the music. 90% of the music in this game is just Breath of the Wild music. When I saw that Tears of the Kingdom was nominated for Best Soundtrack in the Game Awards, I laughed. I thought that was hilarious because, oh wow, they nominated Breath of the Wild for Best Soundtrack again? They did that back in 2017. No, I'm not saying that the Tears of the Kingdom music is bad. It's not. There's some bangers here, like the Colgera theme and yeah, the Colgera theme. Just kidding, and the trailer, the main trailer theme slaps too. But I think the fact that the music is just repeated from Breath of the Wild does not do this game any favors. Not even just the music, by the way, it's the sound effects. There's sound effects that are reused, like in the menus. Combine that with the world, this game does feel very similar to Breath of the Wild, and it really doesn't help its case for the people who say this game's a $70 DLC. Because I've played some really good DLCs recently that have a brand new world to explore, that have brand new music, have a brand new story. Hey, but those are really good DLCs, so most DLCs are not that good. But in the end, guys, as a longtime Zelda fan who fell in love with the series thanks to the classic Zelda games, Tears of the Kingdom was not the Zelda game that I wanted, but I did still enjoy it a lot. I know I just got done complaining about it, but I did enjoy it. I promise I enjoyed it. In fact, I'd rate this game a 9.25 out of 10. It's funny because I think this game has higher highs than Breath of the Wild, but also lower lows than Breath of the Wild. I think it even might have more issues than Breath of the Wild, but I'd rather play Tears of the Kingdom than Breath of the Wild because Tears of the Kingdom is more fun. But even if it's not incredible, it's still great, and I loved it, and I also totally called it. Thanks for watching. That's gonna be doing it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy. Let me know your opinion on Tears of the Kingdom down below. My name is PersonizedSky, and I will talk to you later. Shoutouts to Ashton, Alistair, Allison, Arrow, Nervy, Jonah, Ashwood Ash, Jamie, Isaac, Redscape, Happy Salmon, Nintendo Boy, Goldie, Odd, Sarah, Finn, Quinn, Cheesecake, Kevin Game, Tristan, Darth Noodle, Plug, Melissa, Aiden, Sunny Day, Brooke, and Lauren for supporting on Patreon or being a member on my channel.